October 7, 2023. 3,000 Hamas militants launched a multi-pronged ground invasion into Israel from the Gaza Strip. They started to attack Israel's key military bases, police stations, and civilian locations. But shockingly, there was no sign of counter-help from the Israeli army. Civilians and soldiers were left alone on their fate for more than 8 hours, 13 hours, and in some places more than 20 hours. 1,200 people were killed and 250 people were taken as hostages in Gaza. After the attack ended, when people started asking army officials, ministers, and media for explanation, they all answered the question with the same sentence. It was an intelligence failure.
Intelligence failure, colossal intelligence failure.
Spectacular failure of military intelligence.
We have planes, we have helicopters, we have tanks, we have everything. For the first couple of hours, it's like we had no army.
Where was the army?
Did no one from the intelligence department and the Prime Minister himself had any idea that this was coming? Was it truly an intelligence failure? The answer will shock you. October 7, 2023. It was the last day of the Jewish festival, Sukkot. At 6:30 a.m. early in the morning, when Israeli people were just about to start their day, they suddenly began to hear loud sirens across the Israeli towns and cities. They were seeing thousands of rockets coming towards them. Now normally, Israel has one of the best missile defense systems in the world, which is the Iron Dome system. Whenever rockets are fired towards Israel, it can intercept them and destroy them literally in mid-air using highly advanced military technology. But that morning, approximately 1,500 rockets were fired in just 20 minutes. This amount was so high that even this Iron Dome system failed to fully intercept them. At the same time, when the rockets were raining down on Israel, 3,000 Hamas militants launched a multi-pronged ground invasion into Israel from the Gaza Strip. They used simple drones to destroy advanced Israeli watchtowers and other military equipments near the border, including armored vehicles, radars, and other telecommunication infrastructure. They basically blinded the command centers from the get-go so that they could easily break through the borders in masses. And wherever they could not break through like that, they fired rockets at walls to create openings for the fighters. With motorbikes and pickup trucks, Hamas fighters quickly infiltrated Israeli territory. Some of them also used motorboats to reach Israel by sea, and some used paragliders to get into Israel by air. They started to attack Israel's key military bases, police stations, and civilian locations. When images and videos of these attacks started to rapidly spread through social media posts, hundreds of Palestinians of the Gaza Strip got to know about the attack, and they also broke into the Israeli territories. Some of them literally used bulldozers for hours to break the fences so that more people could get through. A lot of events were happening at the same time. Military bases were attacked, Israeli soldiers were killed, many Israeli soldiers and tanks were captured, Hamas fighters were attacking the Israeli villages and cities near the border, hundreds of civilians were getting killed and captured as hostages. But shockingly, there was no sign of counter-help from the Israeli army.
We have planes, we have helicopters, we have tanks, we have everything. For the first couple of hours, it's like we had no army.
Where was the army?
Civilians and soldiers were left alone on their fate for more than 8 hours, 13 hours, and in some places more than 20 hours. When the day ended, 1,200 people were killed and 250 people were taken as hostages in Gaza. This was one of the most deadliest attacks in the history of Israel. Yet the whole way this whole attack happened felt like it came out of nowhere. The army was not prepared, the civilians were not warned. It was as if no one saw this coming.
We have planes, we have helicopters, we have tanks, we have everything. For the first couple of hours, it's like we had no army.
After the attack ended, when people started asking army officials, ministers, and media for explanation, that how did 3,000 fighters of a militant group broke into a country like Israel with bikes and paragliders and no one even saw it coming? And they all answered the question with the same sentence. It was an intelligence failure.
Colossal intelligence failure. Colossal intelligence failure.
Spectacular failure of military intelligence.
But hold on, how's that even possible? We're not talking about any random country, we're talking about Israel, the country which is a global leader in cyber intelligence and electronic surveillance, which has world's one of the best intelligence agencies like Mossad, who are famous for detecting threats and eliminating them long before they happen. They had no idea that an attack of this scale was coming. The country, which has world's one of the most powerful army, ranked among the top 20 military powers worldwide with the best air, ground and sea defense systems, highly advanced military technologies, combat drones, heavily armed ground forces and armored vehicles, did not even show up in front of a militant group who crossed the border with broken motorbikes and pickup trucks? When Hamas was attacking civilians and soldiers, there was no backup, no reinforcements, nothing for hours. No one even showed up. It seemed like Israel's military does not even exist. So naturally, this raises a question. Did no one from the intelligence department, the army, and the Prime Minister himself had any idea that this was coming? Was it truly an intelligence failure?
Intelligence failure.
Colossal intelligence failure.
Colossal intelligence failure. Spectacular failure of military intelligence.
The answer will shock you, because it turns out that Israel's intelligence agencies were not sleeping at that time. In fact, they knew about the attack plan in precise details the night before the attack, the month before the attack, and over a year before the attack. Look at this report by the New York Times. Israeli intelligence actually received Hamas's full attack plan of October 7 in 2022, more than a year before the attack actually happened. It was a 40-page document which they codenamed as Jericho Wall. This report perfectly outlined point by point how Hamas was designing the attack to take over Israeli cities, key military bases, and headquarters. And without a surprise, Hamas followed the blueprint with shocking precision on October 7. This document detailed every single thing: that they will use rockets at the beginning of the attack, drones will knock out the security cameras and automated machine guns along the border, and militants will pour into Israel with paragliders and motorcycles. Every single thing that happened on October 7. And it gets even more shocking. The plan didn't just outline tactics. It also included sensitive details about the size of Israel's military force, key locations, and communication hubs, which surely put a big question mark on the security of Israel. So the intelligence officers immediately showed this report to the Chief of Intelligence, Chief of Southern Command, and Head of the Operation Division. But surprisingly, they did not even react. Instead, they told the officers that the plan was unrealistic and too difficult for Hamas to carry out. Okay, let's say the attack was planned for 1 year later, so they did not take the attack seriously. Let it go. But the warnings did not end with the Jericho Wall document. In fact, it started from there. For months before October 7, Israel's intelligence units began to see the same clear sign of the Jericho Wall document again and again. Israel's best signal intelligence unit, Unit 8200, which is famous for intercepting enemy communications and cyber operations, began to receive the same details continuously that Hamas was training for a wide-scale invasion. And 2 counterintelligence officers from Unit 8200 reported the warnings. Seeing that, a senior Israeli Defense Force official, Major Nunn, wrote an assessment to higher officials. He tried to send the assessment through emails and also presented the details in several meetings. According to Israel's Channel 12, Major Nunn tried to reach as many higher authorities as he could. He even reached out to the Chief of Israeli Defense Force to warn about Hamas's military training for the attack in September 2023, just 1 month before October 7. But his warnings were ignored again and again, and instead, the senior official's commanding officer, Lieutenant General Alef, told him the plan was unrealistic and too difficult for Hamas to carry out. Remember this sentence? Exactly like previous when the intelligence officers presented the Jericho Wall document. But do you know what's even more shocking? Hamas was not training for the attack in secret. In fact, they were training openly for months before October 7 and literally placing those videos online for everyone to see.
Palestinian militants can be seen preparing for it in plain sight in training videos like these, look nearly identical to the attacks on the 7th. Since December of 2020, a loose coalition of Palestinian militant groups led by Hamas, called the Joint Room, posted videos to Telegram of their annual training exercises. The journal reviewed hundreds of posts and had military experts analyze them. These annual training sessions took place every December at outdoor locations throughout Gaza. One location is less than 2 miles away from the Erez border crossing, one of the Israeli bases militants attacked on October 7th. Arab, Israeli, and Western media even covered the training events. These videos, which were widely posted to social media.
Is this a joke? How can your enemy train for a wide-scale invasion in less than 2 miles away from your border, literally placing those videos online, and you don't even react? Gaza is the most surveilled location in the world. Israel uses military drones, balloons, cameras, and facial recognition technology to record, monitor, and track Palestinians. They spy on their smartphones using the best spyware technologies like Pegasus. They monitor Palestinians on social media, and they literally arrest people if someone even just posts anything that encourages resistance against Israel's occupation. Then how did they do nothing when a militant group was training openly for months in front of their eyes to literally break into their country? Israel also has a group of female military soldiers whose only job is to watch and observe the border between Israel and Gaza. They are known as Tatzpitaniyot, which means observers. For months before October 7, these female soldiers also gave the same warnings like the previous intelligence officers that Hamas was training for a wide-scale invasion. One of the soldiers, Ronnie Lifshitz, said in an interview that they literally saw Hamas fighters with fake tanks in front of their border, which they were using to train their fighters to kidnap soldiers and practice the scenarios that happened on October 7. She said that when she reported these events to her commanders multiple times, she was ignored again and again.
There was a combat patrol in the sector with 10 trucks of terrorists, and they observed the gates in our fence. Our forces there, scanning and talking amongst themselves. We literally saw our tank with them. A fake tank they were using to train to kidnap soldiers. They were actually practicing scenarios that happened on October 7th.
She said the observers passed their reports up to their commanders, but no one did anything. And not just once. She says they were repeatedly ignored. 15 of her fellow soldiers no one wanted to listen to were killed. 7 more were dragged into Gaza as hostages.
Another female soldier, Margaret, also said that she reported these same events for 6 months before the attack, and she was also ignored.
I think that the main thing that failed is just the fact that they didn't listen to us.
She's part of a unit of female soldiers who surveilled the Gaza side of the border. 6 months before the attack, she noticed and reported unusual activity.
We saw a lot of people that coming to the fence and checking the fence and trying to damage the fence and take parts of it. It's unusual, and especially when it happens so regularly, like every day, every week, couple of times a day. They tested our reaction all the time. They came and then went near, far, like they played with us all the time.
She says her team reported the activity up the chain repeatedly.
They didn't take anything seriously.
In another interview, the parents of a female soldier, Ronnie Eshel, who was killed in the attack of October 7, also said that their daughter reported continuously for months that Hamas militants were training for a big attack in front of their bare eyes.
A lot of months before the October 7. It's not just Ronnie, it's the rest of the girls in the command room.
Sergeant Ronnie Eshel was 19 years old. She and the other women in this photograph were observation soldiers in a command room 780 meters away from Gaza.
They saw Hamas training. They saw that some of the farmers was changed. It wasn't the same people anymore.
They say it was an open secret that Hamas had something in the works.
They reported, and basically it got to the Israeli intelligence. We don't know what they did with this information. Nobody knows.
The whole leadership of the IDF, and I know them. You know, I was their commander in the past. People, especially the intelligence, they didn't listen to the troops, the female soldier that was watching this routine of exercise by the Hamas, and they gave warning after warning, and nobody listened to them, and they were slaughtered and kidnapped.
I want an answer to just one question. Who received the information and didn't give the order to do something about it? Who turned a blind eye, and who is responsible for this?
Maya didn't survive, Noah didn't survive, Shachov didn't survive, and my sweet Ronnie didn't survive.
Lifshitz and other surviving observers, known in Israel as the Watchtower Girls, have testified to a civilian committee and repeated the allegations that their warnings were ignored.
There were countless warnings from the intelligence departments, the soldiers, the border observers, not just a year before the attack, not just a month before the attack, but also the night before the attack. Can you believe it? Top defense officials of IDF held not one, but two emergency meetings the night before October 7 about possibility of an invasion just hours before the attack started. The first meeting took place close to midnight because too much warning was coming from the border observers. General Oded Basyuk, head of operations, Major General Yaron Finkelman, head of Southern Command, Herzl Halevi, chief of staff, and other senior officers from the security services and military intelligence were present in that meeting because by that time it was very clear that something bad was going to happen. Then around 3 a.m., an IDF female observer of Tatzpitaniyot at Kisafim outpost reported that some people were approaching very close to the fence. So a force of Golani Brigade went there, fired a few tear gas grenades, and then left. After that, Israel's security chief Ronan Bar, the commander of Gaza Division's Northern Brigade, Colonel Haim Cohen, and other senior officers called for a second emergency meeting. Remember this name, Colonel Haim Cohen. He will come later. In that meeting, they decided to put two teams of commandos on alert in case any attack happens so that they can serve as a temporary intervention teams until special forces arrive if needed. Additionally, the commander of the Palmachim base, Brigadier General Omri Dor, received an order to increase the drone monitoring of Gaza, so he called for more drone crew, which means that the warnings did reach the IDF higher officials, and just hours before the attack, they knew that the security was at risk and something bad can happen. But they literally did not warn anyone. October 7 was the last day of the Jewish festival Sukkot, so there was a massive music festival taking place near the Israel-Gaza border named Supernova event. The festival was going on for 2 days already, October 5 and 6, and October 7 was the last day. So there was a music concert happening the whole night before October 7, and around 3,500 people were there. It was happening just outside the kibbutz Rim, which was a very dangerous location itself. Because on one side there was the Gaza border, and on the other side there was a very important military company outpost of Israel called Israelizer. Israelizer was a manufacturing base of IDF drone and surveillance operations where they were making military technologies for Israel's Ministry of Defense, and this was also one of the major targets of Hamas militants. The organizers of the music festival, Universal Parello, initially did not choose this location, but just 2 days before the festival, they chose to shift the location to this site, sandwiching it between the border and military outpost for an unknown reason. Moreover, the festival was originally approved for only 2 days, but just the day before the festival began, they added an extra day, which was October 7. The Supernova Music Festival was authorized by the commander of Gaza Division's Northern Brigade, Colonel Haim Cohen. I told you that this name will come later, remember? He was the one who signed the papers on October 5 authorizing the Supernova event just 2 days before the attack happened. So he knew about the music event, and very disturbingly, he was also present in the second emergency meeting of the night before October 7 where they discussed the possible Hamas attack. He and other army officials knew that something bad could happen, but throughout that night, no one of these people tried to stop the party or gave any sort of warning to the party's security team. In fact, shockingly, the IDF border soldiers did not even know that there was a party going on near the border, and 3,500 people's lives were in danger. One of the commanders of the area said to the Israeli newspaper Haaretz that no one even informed the forces that there was a festival taking place. In another investigation, Israeli Air Force Commander Tomer Bar revealed that he was unaware for 10 hours about the concert. Another pilot said that even after 8 hours of the attack, he did not know that a concert was going on near the border. When another officer he was assisting asked him to escort the officer to the festival, he said he had no idea what the officer was talking about. The festival's production team said that if they had received any warning from the army, even if just 1 hour before the attack, they could have evacuated all the people in time. After Hamas attacked, thousands of people at concert were trapped. They began to run away from the area to save their lives. Some people hide in bomb shelters and some in other places. And around 7 a.m., the party organizers tried to contact the military for the first time. One of them called Lieutenant Colonel Zandani, who was also in the process of approving the festival, and told him that terrorists were shooting the people. In response, Zandani told him that he cannot help him and they better handle the situation themselves. Whilst one of the strongest military force of a country which is so small that a military helicopter can cover the width of Israel in just 15 to 30 minutes and a fighter jet can cross the entire country in just a few minutes, the first IDF forces arrived at the festival location at 3 p.m. 8.5 hours after the attack started. Result? 344 civilians were dead and 44 people were taken as hostage. But the festival was just one of the many locations that Hamas militants attacked. They attacked Be'eri, Kfar Aza, Nirim, Nahal, Alumim, Rim, and many other locations. People were hoping the army would come and rescue them, but there was no sign of counter-help from the Israeli army for hours. The civilians were left alone on their fate for more than 8 hours, 13 hours, and in some places, more than 20 hours. So you just saw how many sources the Israeli authorities received warnings from. Every single person was telling them the same thing. In fact, it was also not that they were just warned by their own officers only. Israel shares the border of Gaza with Egypt, and as a matter of fact, before Hamas attacked on October 7, Egypt also gave strong warnings repeatedly to the Israeli government. An Egyptian intelligence official said that Israel ignored direct warnings again and again that Hamas was planning something big. And after nothing was helping, Egypt's intelligence minister, General Abbas Kamel, personally called Netanyahu only 10 days before the attack. But they were shockingly surprised by Netanyahu's reaction to it. He acted as if it was nothing.
We know that Egypt had warned the Israelis 3 days prior that an event like this could happen. We know that this had been planned perhaps as long as a year ago.
In a situation when your own military officials to your neighboring country, everyone is telling you the same thing, that your country's border is at risk, would you ignore it or would you take it seriously? You'd increase the soldiers at the borders, right? But guess what Netanyahu did? Just a few days before October 7, he ordered 2/3 of the army battalions, each with about 800 soldiers, to leave the border of Israel and Gaza. Journalist Seymour Hersh reported this in his article that they moved 1,600 soldiers to the West Bank and left only 800 soldiers for guarding the 51-kilometer border of Gaza and Israel. That means that the Israeli citizens of the south were basically left without any military security. Can you believe it? I mean, can you seriously believe it that you get back-to-back reports that a militant group can attack, your country's border is in danger, and what do? You remove 2/3 of the border forces. Does it make any sense? So Israel cannot say that they had no clue before the attack. It's clear that from a junior soldier to the Prime Minister of Israel, every single person knew that the attack was coming. It was an open secret. Hamas decided in April 2022 that they would launch an attack on Israel. By September 2022, Hamas was 85% ready, and in May 2023, they decided to launch the assault on October 7. This level of planning was done by Hamas and Israeli officials did not even have a clue? Is this possible? 5,000 rockets were fired on Israel from Gaza Strip during the entire day of October 7. A militant group stockpiled this quantity of rockets in the most surveilled territory in the world, and Israel did not even have a hint. They had detailed analysis of the attack a year before. Their intelligence continuously warned them. Female observers of the borders continuously warned them. Hamas was training openly and posting those videos on social media. News medias were covering about the attack, and when nothing was helping, Egypt's intelligence minister himself called the Prime Minister Netanyahu. And don't forget that the army high officials also had 2 emergency meetings the night before October 7. If after all these evidences anyone still believes that intelligence informations, warnings, graphic and video evidences of a threat of this scale could fall into the hands of Israeli government without every single one of them knowing, from a clerk to the Prime Minister himself, that an attack of this scale was coming, then they're basically fooling themselves. And Israel's stock market is also another proof of this fact, that the Israeli authorities knew about the attack before it happened. Because on the morning of October 7, there was a huge stock market manipulations of short sellings which cannot be explained by any rational metric other than the fact that some investors knew that a disaster was coming. 2 US law professors, Robert Jackson Jr. from the New York University and Yoshua Mitz of Columbia University, made a 66-page research report based on the data from Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, which exposed that some investors earned millions of dollars by short selling of Israeli shares using the October 7 attack. Let me explain what short selling is for those who don't know. Imagine that the value of a share of X company is $100. I am an investor, and for some reason I think that the value is going to drop in future. So I borrow the share and sell it to the open market, so I get $100 since the value of the share is $100. Now some days later, the value of the share drops as my prediction. Let's say the company made a loss, and that's why its share value dropped from $100 to $80. Now remember that the share does not belong to me. I borrowed it, right? So I buy back the share from the market with $80 since its current value is $80, and I return it back to its owner. So here I make a profit of $20. And that's how short selling works. You make a profit if the value of a share drops as your prediction. And before the attack of October 7, exactly this happened in the Israeli stock market. The researchers wrote in their report that days before the attack, traders appeared to predict the events. The professors analyzed the short sellings by an exchange fund which tracks the performance of Israeli stock exchanges. And they found that on 2nd October, just 5 days before the attack, short selling suddenly and significantly spiked. For example, short selling of Israeli securities on Tel Aviv Stock Exchange increased dramatically. They told the Telegraph newspaper that it was unimaginable that the profits from these short sellings were above $100 million. Similarly, about 4.5 million new shares of Leumi, Israel's largest bank, were sold between 4 September and 5 October, and Leumi's share price dropped by almost 9% on October 8, the immediate next day after the attack. The report says that these short sellings sharply increased during a time when normally Israel's stock market does not see much activity, because when Hamas attacked, it was the time of Sukkot, which was a holiday period, but still short selling spiked at that time. And not on just October, the professors also highlighted that this same pattern of short selling was seen also in early April, when it was reported that Hamas is planning to attack Israel. Short sellings peaked on April 3 at the same levels that were observed on October 2nd. So these law professors are also pointing out that Israel always knew that Hamas was going to attack. They had clear information about it, and the investors successfully took advantage of it by making money over their own people's bloodshed. So the truth is undeniable and the facts are crystal clear. The Israeli government, their military, and the intelligence agencies were not caught by surprise on October 7. They were warned again and again from their own soldiers and even from their neighboring country. They had detailed documents, military intelligence, and even public videos of Hamas soldiers training openly for months, and still they did not take any action, didn't even alert the soldiers, and instead removed 2/3 of the soldiers from the border just before the attack happened. Even the night before the attack, they had 2 emergency meetings, and they knew that their country's security is in danger, and yet no civilians were warned, no soldiers came when civilians were dying, no evacuations were made. This was never an intelligence failure. This was a clear political and military betrayal on the citizens by those who were supposed to protect them, so that they can use this attack as an excuse to start the ethnic cleansing and genocide on the people of Gaza, and this is very clear to the world after 1.5 years of October 7.